So the same designer that I featured in my last uniform video created some more uniform design concepts for defunct NFL teams. So let's take a look at each one, and as you watch this video, comment down below your favorite and least favorite design. So first up, we have the Columbus Panhandles, and they were a member of the NFL from 1920 to 1926, and the artist wrote, "The Panhandles were called the toughest team in professional sports. The team was made up of Boilermakers. Because they worked for the Panhandles division of the Pennsylvania Railroad, they could ride for free to games. They did the majority of their preparations for games during lunch breaks. The team featured 7 brothers from the Nesser family, and the only father and son combination with Ted Nesser and his son Charlie playing at the same time. The owner of the Columbus Panhandles was Joe Carr, who became the NFL's president until 1939. So the designer originally designed a white helmet with the original logo seen here, but didn't really like the design, so he kind of scrapped it, worked on those previous designs that I showed in the last video, but came back and designed some pretty cool uniforms. So he has the burgundy, gold, and white, which reminds me of the ASU Sun Devils colors, which I kind of like a lot, but it could cause problems if it was actually in the NFL because the Washington Redskins uniform is a similar color scheme to this. And in my personal opinion, this uniform is fairly bland, but I am a big fan of the keystone on the sleeve of the red uniform because the keystone represents the state of Pennsylvania, and it makes sense for this team's history. The Akron Pros was a member of the NFL from 1920 to 1926, and the artist wrote, "There's a logo used to represent the Akron Pros made up of the letters A and P with swirls and flourishes. I'm not sure if it was official or invented by Wallaby and Ward for their NFL Golden Age series patches. Even if it was, the logo and the uniform would have evolved over time. The team could have a very elemental, clean look, being one of the oldest of NFL franchises. The brown comes from the color of the football itself, with the yellow stripes coming from the original uniform. The Akron Pros are also the NFL champions in 1920. The designer of these uniforms actually had a lot of trouble developing the logo, but eventually settled on the A and P because he thought it would look better on the helmets that he designed. And once again, you can see that the burgundy theme is very popular with early NFL colors, and that's what this uniform is based on. The jersey designs in general are fairly simple but work as an NFL jersey, so that's good. And I especially like the white jerseys because with white pants, this would be a really cool color rush uniform that would be really fun to look at on Thursday night. And the white helmet seems odd with the black lettering, and I would kind of prefer it to be yellow with like A and P being burgundy. But overall, this is a pretty cool uniform and it's interesting to look at. The artist also designed a red version of the Akron Pros uniforms and also wrote, "The Akron Pros were the first NFL champions. They were also the first to hire a black head coach, Fritz Pollard. The team was heavily involved in the Ohio League, the precursor to the NFL. If Akron had a logo, there's no evidence for it online. This is my second attempt at making a logo." Other than the red color, this uniform is really notable for the vertical stripes on the red jersey sleeves, and it might look like a soccer uniform, but I like the uniqueness because you never really see anything like it in the NFL. And in my personal opinion, the white jersey looks a lot like the New York Giants white jerseys, and I do really like the red helmets and the secondary version of the logo much better than the previous version that I showed. Additionally, the designer made a blue version of the jersey that he felt was the most boring of the three, and to me it looks really similar to the Detroit Lions jersey, and I agree it's a little bit too boring. In this case, the white helmets with the black AP logo that we saw earlier will look better with this blue theme. So I think that instead of the blue, it should be white helmets. But overall, it's a pretty decent look, but yeah, it's boring. The Rochester Jeffersons was a member of the NFL from 1920 to 1925, and the artist wrote, "The Rochester Jeffersons began as a sandlot team of players in and around Jefferson Avenue in Rochester, New York. The Jeffs were the best of the local teams and were part of the founding of the NFL. They were better than the semi-pro and amateur teams, but did not have the talent of other professional teams they faced in the pro league. That they survived as long as they did was a tribute to the love that their owner, Leo Lyons, had for football. After the team folded, he became the NFL's unofficial historian. He was a major advocate and contributor to the NFL Hall of Fame. The designer actually modernized the original Jeffs logo, but he acknowledged that the team, if it was still in current day NFL, would have a much different logo. It would have gone through extreme changes over the decades to better represent the NFL brand. Personally, I really like the bold red color and the plumpness of the numbers on the chests of the jerseys. The 3 stripes on the sleeves with the logo really look good too, in my opinion. Finally, the red looks really good on the helmet, but I think that the logo looks a little bit awkward on the helmet and would benefit from possibly having like a secondary logo design, something more original than just Jeffs in cursive. But overall, decent looking uniform. The Buffalo All-Americans was an NFL member from 1920 to 1929, and the artist wrote, "The Buffalo All-Americans were one of the early powerhouses of the NFL. They were 18-2-2 in their first 2 seasons. The loss of the 1921 NFL championship has been called the Staley Swindle. Buffalo scheduled a pair of exhibition games after an undefeated season. One of these was a loss to the Chicago team, after which George Halas claimed the league championship. The All-Americans logo was one of the hardest to track down. A scan from a letterhead used by the team in 1925 was posted on Facebook. The logo and the uniform design grew out of that bit of information." So he actually acknowledges that the original All-Americans logo was based on a drawing from English minister Samuel Morris from his book American Pictures Drawn with Pen and Pencil, and the designer himself made some adjustments and came up with this specific logo. And personally, I like the jersey styles in general with the Buffalo logo on the sleeves, but I would really like a yellow/orange, whatever this color is, jersey instead of just a white or black. It should replace one of these two. But overall, I really like the helmet design, and I can't really think of anything I would change with the helmet. So this is a decent uniform concept. The Tonawanda Kardex was a member of the NFL just in 1921, and the designer wrote, "The Tonawanda Kardex is famous for playing a single NFL game. The team has been called the Tonawanda Lumbermen, but adopted the name Kardex after being sponsored by James Rand Jr., owner of the American Kardecs, a manufacturer of index cards. His company became Remington Rand, and then Sperry Rand, and then Unisys. If James Rand Jr. had been the owner rather than the sponsor, there's a chance that the team would have survived more than one game. If it had, the team would have been the most corporate of teams. Its team identity would have been closely tied in with the branding of the companies that grew out of American Kardecs." So the designer got inspired for this uniform by Googling corporate shirt because the team was owned by a corporation, and I personally like the green accents and the logo. I just like this lime green color in general, and the different shades of blue color scheme is good in my opinion, but I don't like the side blue panel on the darker jersey, and in general I think that the helmet looks really simple and clean and just looks pretty good. And he also did a uniform version for the Lumbermen, and he wrote, "This version of the Tonawanda depicts the team going back to their regular name, the Lumbermen. The idea behind the uniform is a modernized version, hence the very metal word mark. I personally feel like the axe logo is a little bit awkward in the T-shape and is a little bit too big on the helmets themselves, and the colors are pretty good. The light blue and the darker blue remind me of the Tennessee Titans uniforms. I don't like this weird awkward shape that kind of interferes the stripe on the light blue jersey. I think it could possibly resemble a buckle on suspenders that lumberjacks wear, but I think that's kind of a stretch. I'm not really sure what this shape is supposed to be, and that's really one of the things I don't like about this uniform." The Cincinnati Celts was a member of the NFL in 1921, and the designer wrote, "The Cincinnati Bengals were not the first NFL team in town. The very earliest of them was the Celts, another of the Ohio League teams that formed the backbone of early NFL. In the league's early years, teams transitioned from loose semi-pro to professionally organized teams. Teams with weaker schedules did not survive long. The Celts had a strong logo that lent itself to a basic black and yellow uniform design." So the designer really thought that they had a pretty good logo and just cleaned it up a little bit, but I personally don't really like this logo, and I think it's just too simple and doesn't really make sense. I don't really like the radioactive yellow and how it contrasts with the black, and I think this looks like more of a worse Steelers uniform, and the logo needs a total remodel in my opinion, and maybe the colors do as well. Although the jersey designs are pretty simple and decent, I don't think they can save it from the flaws that this uniform has already. The Racine Legion was an NFL member from 1922 to 1924 and also 1926, and the designer wrote, "The design is based on the armor of the Roman Legion, with the light and the dark gray being the armor and the red being the tunic worn underneath the armor. The R logo is the original Racine logo. The helmet logo is made up of 2 spears crossing over a crown of laurels. The Legion's home stadium still exists and is the home of the Racine Raiders, a minor league football team. It was also home for the Racine Bells, an all-American girls professional baseball team." An interesting fact about the Racine Legion is that presidential candidate Mitt Romney's uncle, Milton Romney, was actually a quarterback on the team, so that's pretty cool. But personally, I like the red and the 2 shades of gray color scheme. I think it looks really good on this uniform, and the Spears logo is very unique and looks really good on the helmets in general. Nothing really seen like that in the NFL, and although the jersey looks a little bit boxy in the numbering and the way it's designed, I think that it's one of my favorite uniforms that you'll see in this video. The Milwaukee Badgers was an NFL member from 1922 to 1926, and the designer wrote, "The Badgers were founded in hope and died in scandal. The hope was that a team based in the Milwaukee area could be started and compete relatively quickly. The reality was that the team never gelled, and that when the Chicago Cardinals needed an easy win in 1925, they called the Badgers. The call came after the regular season, so the team filled the roster with whoever they could. Unfortunately, that included 4 high school players. Once the NFL commissioner heard of it, the team was fined $500, which at the time was more than they had. So when the artist was designing this uniform and the logo, he actually just fixed the original logo and felt that it could be used in the modern day NFL. And I personally really like the uniform, but it feels more like a college uniform. NFL uniforms don't really have these intricate designs with the Badger stripes on the helmet and the jersey. You don't really see that in the NFL. I wish you would, but you don't really. And I, in general, really love the color scheme of the black and white jerseys, and it looks really good with the orange accent. So once again, one of my favorite uniforms in this collection. The Newark or Orange Tornadoes was a member of the NFL from 1929 till 1930, and the artist wrote, "Just as the color orange was named after the fruit, the Orange Tornadoes weren't named after the color, but for their hometown of Orange, New Jersey. The Tornadoes were that rare team to survive the past NFL. A version of the team survived until 1941, and they were revived from 1963 to 1969. By then, the team was named the Orlando Predators of the Atlantic Coast Football League." So the designer of this uniform and the logos found a lot of different logos that he could redesign, but he found one with the tornado, but really wanted to integrate the O for orange into the logo, which is what he did. Personally, I think that the color scheme is really similar to the Denver Broncos, and it goes really good together, and I really love the tornado swirls on the darker jersey's shoulders, and I just think this is a really good design, and nothing that really stands out that I don't like. The Staten Island Stapletons was a member of the NFL from 1929 till 1932, and the artist wrote, "The design is based on an image of the Stapletons uniform. It featured 3 stripes and the letter S on the sleeve. Staten Island is the East Coast city known for a ferry, which is the reason for the nautical theme. The design borrows from the Navy's helmet of a few years ago. The logo design features a pair of overlapping S's for the first letter in Staten and Stapleton." So this uniform was actually inspired by the original blue Stapletons uniform with the yellow stripes on the sleeves, and I personally really love the blue, yellow, and white color scheme, and I can't really think of another NFL team that has this specific color combination, especially with this darker style blue. The logos are interesting, but I don't really feel like they're NFL logo material because they're a little bit too detailed and doesn't really go with the NFL brand, but I do really like the 2 colors on the helmet, and it would be even better with like a large bold S instead of the ship's wheel on the helmet. But overall, it's a decent design. The St. Louis Gunners was a member of the NFL in 1934, and the artist wrote, "The St. Louis Gunners had one of the most gaudy uniforms ever used by an NFL team. The original had a strong red and white blue theme, which is what I followed here. The team began as the Battery A Gunners, so named because they were sponsored by the 128th Field Artillery of the Missouri National Guard. The team joined the NFL for 3 games, finishing a season for another team that went under." As you can see, the original uniforms had a lot of extra with the red pants, and the designer used a lot of elements from that original logo, but fixed some of the things that were kind of wrong. And I personally think that the logo would benefit from some modernization, and I don't really feel like it's an NFL style logo, especially with this cannon and all the detail with the shield. But the red, white, and blue is a classic color scheme, and it's pulled off really well with this uniform. And overall, I think the jerseys look really good, and the white helmet is cool, and I really like the stripes going from the front to the back. Thank you for watching this video, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and check out one of these 2 videos on screen here. I think you might like them.